Action! Ladies and gentlemen, it's that time again. Part 3 of Professor Victor Singingeagle's brilliant lectures on Native American literature here at Sisseton Wahpeton College. Today is Thursday, February 13th, 2025, and the time is now 1811. We got to get right to it. So here we go with Professor Victor Singingeagle. Yay! Now, welcome back. I was telling you this story about Ncha and the hero twins, the similarities and differences, and I gave you the challenge question, why is Singingeagle bugging you about a Chinese story and juxtaposing it to the story of the hero twins? I'll let you mess with it on your own because I can stand up here and just tell you what to think. But what I find particularly interesting, and then I'll change the channel, is that a lot of stories that exist in Native American culture, especially my tribe, they have mirror images or other versions in China. How the heck did these stories get all the way from the Americas to China or back the other way, back and forth? You never know. That's just an interesting question for anthropologists and ethnographers. Whew. I'm starting to make myself dizzy with all my yakety yak. Let's jump on down to item number 4. This is something I call the necessary savage. It's from an undergraduate paper that I wrote when I was a student at the University of California at Santa Barbara. And I got to explain what this means and how tie it into what it relates to literature. Are you ready? Here we go. Now, one of the problems that I saw as an undergraduate is that a lot of the literature that's written about Native Americans was crap. I hate to be so blunt, but we don't have enough time to explain. The teacher, the professor that I was really upset with, or she upset me. It was a class called Literature and the Environment, and she was teaching stories about Indians, not written by Indians, but she was teaching them as historic fact. Some crap called Indian captivity narratives and stuff like that. And what I found is that oftentimes in literature and even in human beings, the xiangfa, I don't know how to say that in English, xiangfa, thinking philosophy is that we need to measure ourselves, especially this is true for non-native peoples. They like to measure themselves against other people and say, we're not like those guys. Those guys are savages, you say. We're better than them. That's what I call the necessary savages. We're not like those guys. Now, I'm going to skip down. A lot of times when we see any literature about Native Americans, not written by Native Americans, but about us, it's usually these three. The Howling Savage, as in Indian captivity narratives, the Vanishing Savage, like in The Last of the Mohicans, or the Noble Savage. That might also be The Last of the Mohicans. It's always, we've got this magical Indian power and Indian philosophy and knowledge that, and because we're dying out, you see, the white people or the colonizers, whoever it is, they need to get that information from us before we all die off, you see, right? That's the noble savage, right? All right, I'm talking too much. So these are things that we're going to see in literature about Indians. And if you know anything about Tiffany Midge, or another one of my buddies is Sherman Alexie. They like to make fun. They like to take these three and make fun of them. They run with them, and they lampoon them, satirize them. They're very merciless when they do it. Drew Lopenzina also comments on this as well, but he has a different one. This is a book that we used to have, but I don't require students to buy anymore or to use anymore. His book, which is called, I think it's called A Survey of Native American Literature, something like that. But I canceled that one because it didn't have enough good stuff for our class, you see. Um, he mentions these three as some of the early native writers who actually are speaking in their own voices, not writing as non-natives about natives, but these are etic, E-T-I-C. We'll talk about that word another time. These are people within their respective cultures writing about their people. William Apis, who is a Pequot, I believe he's from the 1600s. Caleb Chishatiamuk, a Wampanoag Indian. These are East Coast Indians, by the way, those two. And we already talked about Zitkalasa. They are writing as insiders within their culture. They're writing about their people. Drew Lopenzina mentions that when they do it, they are very polite and almost self-deprecating. And this is one reason why Daniel Heath Justice didn't really like their writing too much, especially he comments on Zitkalasa, saying, however, the fact that he doesn't like it, Drew Lopenzina would probably say there's a reason why these three authors wrote the way they did, very humble in their writing style. Whereas Daniel Heath Justice, he's also native, I believe he's Cherokee. He's a modern native, and he can get away with saying things like, we Indians, we need to stand up to injustices, and he's a modern native, and these guys are from way back in 1700s, 1800s. So I'm going to lay that at your feet as students to understand why these guys were so polite in their writing and why Daniel Heath Justice doesn't like that politeness. Gerald Visner kind of gives us a clue. I believe Gerald Visner is a Ojibwe. He says, yeah, humble, ingratiating writing, but why do you think they did that? They were being not only humble and ingratiating, but they were also being quite sarcastic, you say, with their humility. I could stand up here and go crazy with this, but we don't have enough time, do we? No. I'm going to jump over to read, listen, tell. How are we doing on time? I bet you I got to stop this. 7 minutes and 55 seconds. I'm going to do the last section, and this will probably be a very short video. Read, listen, tell, Don Dumont, Plains Cree, Way of the Sword. This is on page 14 of our new book. So I'll stop it here. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in part 4. Talk later. Bye-bye.